I will never forget the sound of that ringtone at exactly 3 a.m. It didn't just wake me up, it ripped me out of sleep like an alarm inside my chest had exploded. When your phone rings at that hour, your mind doesn't think calmly. It jumps instantly to disaster, hospital, accident, death. Something is wrong. Something is very wrong. The room was completely dark, except for that small glowing screen on my nightstand. Daniel, my 72-year-old neighbor. Daniel never calls anyone. He barely texts. He's the kind of man who waves politely from his driveway, keeps his lawn perfectly trimmed, and minds his own business. If he needs something, he figures it out himself. So seeing his name at 3 a.m. didn't just worry me, it terrified me. I answered immediately. For a few seconds, I didn't hear words. I heard breathing, fast, uneven, like someone trying not to cry while running out of air. Then his voice broke through, cracked and shaking in a way I had never heard before. They're going to ruin me. There's a difference between embarrassment and fear. Embarrassment sounds soft, hesitant. Fear sounds sharp, desperate. This was fear. I didn't ask questions. I grabbed my keys and rushed across the street. When I stepped into his house, something felt wrong the second I crossed the doorway. Every light was on. The front door was unlocked. The television was playing quietly in the background, like he had turned it on just to avoid silence. His phone was vibrating non-stop on the kitchen table. His laptop sat open, screen glowing, messages stacking on top of each other faster than I could read. Daniel looked smaller than usual, pale, sweating. His hands were shaking so violently the glass of water in front of him was rattling against the table. "They have everything," he whispered. "They said they'll send it to everyone." 6 months earlier, this nightmare had started in the most ordinary way possible. A message. A woman named Elena, 58, widowed. A warm smile in her profile photo. Soft eyes. She said she admired mature men because they were loyal, emotionally intelligent, and serious about real commitment. She told Daniel he seemed different, genuine, safe. That word sank deep. They began messaging every morning. Good morning texts. Good night wishes. She asked about his late wife. She listened carefully, or at least it felt that way. She remembered details most people forget. His favorite old song, the date of his wedding anniversary, the way he still visited his wife's grave on Sundays. When someone remembers the small details, it feels real, intimate, personal. Within weeks, she suggested moving the conversation off the dating platform. She said it wasn't secure, said she trusted him and wanted privacy. That suggestion felt like closeness, like leveling up the relationship. They began texting privately, then phone calls. Her voice was gentle, calm, sometimes emotional. She would talk about being alone overseas on a humanitarian medical contract. She would say she hated eating dinner alone, hated sleeping alone, hated not having someone to share her day with. She told him she prayed every night for a man exactly like him. No one had spoken to Daniel that way in years. The first request for money didn't feel dangerous. It felt temporary. Her payment was delayed. She needed a small processing fee to access her funds, just a short-term problem. She promised to repay him immediately. She sounded embarrassed, even asking. He hesitated. She said quietly, "If you don't trust me, I understand. I've been hurt before too." That sentence pierced him. He didn't want to be another man who hurt her. So he sent the money. What followed was an explosion of gratitude. Voice messages filled with tears. Promises of a shared future. She talked about moving to his town permanently, walking together in the evenings, cooking dinner side by side, growing old without being alone ever again. Then came the second emergency. A medical issue. A hospital bill that couldn't wait. Then a shipping complication involving expensive equipment. Then an investment opportunity that would double their money so they could retire comfortably together. Every request came wrapped in affection. Every transfer felt like protecting their future. Each time he doubted, she reassured him with love. By the time suspicion finally surfaced, nearly $80,000 had disappeared from his retirement savings. Decades of careful planning, gone. But money wasn't what nearly killed him. Tonight, the tone of the messages had changed completely. No more affection, no more warmth. A new number began sending screenshots of private photos he had shared in trust. Intimate images he believed would never leave a private conversation. "We will send these to your family, to your church, to everyone in your contacts. Pay now, or we expose everything." The phone began vibrating again as we stood there. Again and again and again. Each vibration felt like a countdown. Daniel's breathing became shorter, faster. I could see his pulse pounding in his neck, his face drained of color. He pressed his hand against his chest and said it felt tight, like something heavy was sitting on him. Shame is more powerful than fear of losing money. They can't see this, he kept repeating. I won't survive it. And the terrifying truth is, he almost didn't. His blood pressure had spiked dangerously high. Stress like that in a 72-year-old man can trigger a heart attack or stroke within minutes. The scammers knew this, maybe not specifically about him, but they understood panic. They understood urgency. They understood isolation. They had told him not to tell anyone, said involving others would make it worse, said payment was the only solution. That is the trap. Payment never ends blackmail. It confirms vulnerability. I unplugged his laptop from the internet. I powered off his phone. The sudden silence felt heavy and unnatural after the constant vibration. For the first time in hours, there was no noise, no threats, just quiet. And slowly, his breathing began to stabilize. Scammers rely on speed, momentum, chaos. The moment you interrupt that cycle, their control weakens. We called the bank immediately, froze what accounts we could, reported every transfer, saved screenshots of every message, then contacted authorities. These criminals operate professionally, scripts tested, photos stolen from real profiles, sometimes voices enhanced or generated using artificial intelligence. They build emotional trust with precision. Daniel kept saying, "I'm not stupid. How did this happen?" Intelligence has nothing to do with it. Loneliness does. If you are over 60, recently widowed, divorced, living alone, you are statistically targeted more often. Not because you lack awareness, but because you value connection. Because you were raised to believe words matter. Because companionship feels priceless after loss. Daniel didn't almost die because he lost money. He almost died because he believed his reputation was destroyed. Because he felt humiliated, because he thought everyone would judge him without understanding how carefully he had been manipulated. The emotional shock hit his body like a physical attack. Here are the warning signs that must never be ignored. Anyone who declares love unusually fast. Anyone who refuses live video calls. Anyone claiming to be overseas on military duty, oil rigs, or humanitarian contracts with constant payment issues. Anyone who insists on moving conversations off official platforms quickly. Anyone asking for gift cards, wire transfers, cryptocurrency, or secrecy. And if someone threatens to release private images, do not pay. Payment does not erase evidence. It invites more demands. Disconnect immediately. Preserve evidence. Report it and tell someone you trust. Silence is the scammer's strongest weapon. By 4:30 a.m., Daniel's breathing had slowed to normal. The chest pain eased, but emotionally, he looked shattered. The illusion of love that had comforted him for months dissolved in a single hour, replaced by cold calculation and manipulation. He looked at me and said softly, "I wasn't trying to be foolish. I just didn't want to be alone anymore." That is the heart of this story. Not greed, not stupidity, loneliness. The most dangerous scams do not break down doors. They don't shout threats at first. They arrive gently, with compliments, with patience, with understanding. They study your pain. They build trust brick by brick. And the moment you finally feel seen, valued, and loved again, they tighten the trap. That 3 a.m. call could have ended with sirens. It could have ended with paramedics rushing him out on a stretcher. It could have ended permanently. Instead, it became a warning. If any part of this story feels uncomfortably familiar, do not wait for your own 3 a.m. moment. Speak to someone today. Verify identities. Protect your finances. Protect your heart. Ask questions even if it feels awkward. Because the most terrifying part of Daniel's story wasn't the money he lost. It was how close he came to losing his life over someone who never even existed.